Welcome to another Coffee with Colin and thank you for joining me. This week is the first of four where I'm going to tackle the 4 pillars of self-care under the umbrella of POYOOMF, put on your own oxygen mask first. And the first pillar of those pillars is health. Next week we'll talk about wealth, thereafter relationships and thereafter spirit. But today we're going to focus on health. And Billy Connolly, I think, said it best. He said, if you want to be healthy, he says, you've got to eat less and move more. I think that's ingenious. If you want to be healthy, well, then you simply have to eat less and move more. And largely that's true. You know it to be true, and I know it to be true, that when we feel better physically, we perform better in every aspect of our life. So there's no magic sauce to this. There's no secret ingredient here. It's very simple. The very first pillar in terms of us looking after ourselves has got to be our physical health. And so what's involved in our physical health? Well, clearly diet is involved. We're back to Billy Connolly, eat less. And that's perhaps true. Eat less, but eat less of the wrong stuff and eat more of the right stuff. I'm not vegetarian, I'm not vegan, but I am very aware that the body metabolizes that which grows most naturally. So it makes sense that we should incorporate fruit and vegetables into our diet more often than perhaps we do today. We don't have to be rocket scientists to figure out that if we consistently live on a diet of burgers and chips and Coke, whether it's diet or otherwise, is just the wrong diet to have. I mean, let's be honest here. So diet is certainly one aspect of your health that needs consideration. I'm not fanatical about my diet, I'm just aware of my diet. I eat enough to allow me to do the stuff that I want to do, and I'm somewhat more aware now than I was in previous times of what I'm eating. I still have a fry every weekend, happy to do that. I still have a few pints of Guinness on a Friday night, happy to do that. Indeed, moderation in everything, including moderation itself, I think is a golden rule that I'm happy to live by personally. The second aspect of health is exercise. It doesn't matter what age you are today, because the reality is you're not getting any younger. None of us are. Every single moment of our lives we're getting closer to the end game, and therefore our body is changing. Our body is basically wasting away, let's be honest. And for us to remain fit and healthy and strong and capable, well, then we must do something to take account of that natural fact that our body is wasting away. We must get involved in some exercise or other. Some people pump iron, that's their thing. They want to have Adonis type bodies. Let them off, I say. Everyone to their own. That's not for me. But being healthy is definitely for me. Back in the day I used to run, but I don't run anymore. Why don't I run anymore? Because I began not to enjoy it because my knees began to hurt. I'm in my mid-50s now. So my exercise of choice these days is some yoga. Yes, I do some yoga, and I do some yoga most mornings in the week. And I have a 15-minute routine that I work on, I have been working on for many years. Of course, I lost sight of it for many years as well in the middle, but a 15-minute piece that just does it for me, and it allows me to remain a little more supple. And then I finish that with, I push up and I sit up my age. So I push up 55 press-ups and I sit up 55 times, and that just does it for me. Why 55? Because that's my age. Why 55? Because when I'm 56, it won't be too much trouble to add in the extra push-up or the extra sit-up, and I'm looking forward to those years when I'm doing 80 plus and 90 plus. Why not? Because I've built up the resilience to allow myself to do 55 today. It's not really a problem, and 56 won't be a bother. The second aspect of my physical regime is I walk a lot. Of course I sit a lot, but I walk a lot to compensate. I love walking by water. That's my absolute favourite thing in the world. I love walking by water, and as often as I can I get out and get some fresh air. 20 minutes does it for me. I don't try to break any records. It's just about me filling my lungs and my mind with some fresh air and peace and quiet, and that does it for me. But in all of this, you've got to figure out what does it for you. The reality is you've got to look after your diet better perhaps than you have been, but don't get fanatical about it. The reality is you've got to look after your exercise in some shape or form. You've got to start taking steps towards a healthier physical body if you want to enjoy the later years, and I certainly do. The third aspect of health is rest. And none of us get enough sleep, let's be honest. None of us get enough quality sleep. And why don't we? Because we live a life of distraction. We choose to live a life of distraction. I'm not an expert on sleep. I'm not an expert on diet. I'm not an expert on exercise. I'm just aware that it's very important. And when I go to bed in the evening, I try my very best to set myself up for 7 hours continuous sleep. That's the ideal. When I'm setting the alarm for the morning, if I've got 7 full hours, I feel quite content. And the fourth element of being healthy is a healthy mind. It's a healthy mindset. It's peace of mind. You know, you can't really diet and exercise and rest unless you're in control of what's going on up here. You've got to get your head screwed on straight first before you get into the habit, allow yourself to get into the habit of eating healthier and exercising more frequently and resting better. And how do we develop a peaceful mind? Well, it takes work. It takes intention, it takes attention, and it takes work. It doesn't happen by accident. I work really hard, and I have done for many years, on making sure that my mind remains calm. So if I'm serious about POYOOMF, if I'm serious about my health, then I got to get better at making sure my mind remains peaceful. And there's two habits that I've developed over the years that help me with that. The first of those habits is reading. I read regularly, have read regularly for many years now. Read books that stimulate my mind. Read books about personal development, business development, anything really that catches my interest. Currently, I'm really excited about the whole area of well-being, and I'm reading a lot of Deepak Chopra. And I follow my own 10-a-day program largely, and that is read for 10 minutes or read 10 pages a day in a book that will get your creative juices flowing. Read for 10 minutes or read 10 pages a day. And the transformational effect of that over time is phenomenal, trust me. And the second practice that I engage in regularly is a practice around meditation. So my meditative routine involves about 15 minutes most mornings in a week, and it's to do with me sitting up straight. As it happens, I sit in a chair, in this chair that I'm sitting in, with a very straight back, feet planted firmly on the ground, and then I get comfortable and calm and make sure I'm warm. I don't allow myself to get cold, so I wrap up quite well. And then I close my eyes and I begin by breathing in and breathing out. I've got a particular mantra that I recite in my mind as I breathe in and out. And then I breathe in through my scalp first and out through my scalp. Clearly that's not physically possible, but in other words, I bring my attention to my scalp, then to my forehead, then to my eyes, then to my mouth, my neck, my chest, my arms, my abdomen, my lower parts, my legs, my calves, and then out into my feet. And I carry my stress in my feet. I'm not sure if there's any other feet stressors out there, but I carry my stress in my feet. So I really love when I get to that point in my meditation where I'm bringing my attention and my intention to the soles of my feet, and I allow them relax into the day, and that just works for me. So the question I'm posing in this week's Coffee with Colin is, do you want to be healthier? I assume you do. So therefore you need to look at the four aspects of health. You need to look at diet, you need to look at exercise, you need to look at sleep, and you need to look at peace of mind. And if you can marginally improve in each of those four areas every single week, can you imagine the improvement that you'll make in a year? Can you imagine the improvement that you'll make in 10 years? See, none of us are getting any younger. Okay, in 10 years from now our bodies will be less strong than they are today, less able to fight off disease than they are today, unless we take measures today to counteract that natural process. It's our responsibility to give ourselves the very best opportunity to be healthy for longer. And if we do so, if we put on our own oxygen masks first, well then we will be of more use to ourselves, and we will be of more use to those people around you. So I mentioned in last week's program that there are two concepts we're going to explore in each of these four sessions around POYOOMF. And the first concept is the big rock. The big rock, just to remind you, is what's most important. The most important thing that you can do around any particular area of your life is the big rock. So the question I want to pose for you this week, please, is what's your big rock in terms of your physical health? Is it around your diet? Is it around exercise? Is it around sleep? Or is it around your peace of mind? What's the big rock for you? What's the most important one of those four? You know yourself. What one is irking you just a little bit more than the others that you really know you should do something about? And then write that down, because that's your big rock around your health. And the second question I want to ask you, now that you've identified your big rock, is what one thing can you do next week that will have the biggest impact on that big rock in your life? Let me repeat that. What one thing, and one thing only, could you do next week that would have the biggest impact, biggest positive impact on that big rock that you've identified around your health? And then write that down. And that, my friend, is your goal for next week. That, my friend, is your goal for next week. If it's around diet, do something different, do it today. If it's around exercise, do something different and do it today. If it's around sleep, do something different and do it tonight when you go to bed. And if it's around peace of mind, do something about it and do something about it today. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. Hope and trust as ever that you got something from it. If you have done, you think somebody else would benefit, I'd be delighted if you pass the link on. If it's your first time here and you like more of this type of stuff, then pop to our homepage, ColmoBryanMotivation.com, and leave you some details and make sure you get a link like this on a weekly basis. Most importantly, please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week and do your homework. And then equally as importantly, please come back next week and we share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. In fact, next week, it's the second in the 4 pillars. It's wealth. In the meantime, get some good coffee for sure. Get some fresh air for sure. If you spend a lot of time alone, I recommend you go meet some people. If you spend a lot of time with people during the week, I recommend you spend some time alone. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count, and I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colm. Sláinte. I really love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.